Welcome to the ABCs of Horses, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring Christy Wood, a world champion horse trainer, a carded horse show judge, an equestrian expert, and an author.
So welcome, everyone. It is the beginning of Volume 2 of the ABCs of Horses with Christy Wood, and we're starting the alphabet again. And Volume 1 is the digital magazine, and we say volumes. Yes, we have a podcast, but it also has its own digital magazine. Volume 1 is linked in the episode notes, so you can listen and get the highlights. And that's one thing we're delving into with this next volume, Volume 2, is you'll get podcast highlights as well. So you can listen, but also read from the transcript. It's boiled down a little. You don't have to read the whole transcript, boiled down, so you also have that written information. Isn't that cool, Christy?
Yes, it's wonderful.
We're taking it straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not calling you a horse.
I like that.
but it's true, which is so fantastic. Today, starting with A, we're doing action and agility. So, wow, agility. Does that mean agility is like we have a little bit of grace and that we are not clunky? Like a dancer has to have agility and move gracefully because they've already worked really hard on their steps, right?
Yes. And horses have 2 extra steps that they have to take to keep themselves agile and balanced. They've got 4 legs instead of 2.
That makes a good point. So I know you talk about, agility. So is this really about the training part with your horse, whether you're on the horse or lunging?
Actually, we go back to observing. If you are interested in what your horse is capable of doing, there's the observation of turning a horse loose and watching how they move. It's very, very important as part of the evaluation before you even purchase this horse to see, make sure the horse is moving correctly, doesn't have what we call a hitch in its get along, and maybe one hoof touches the ground a little different than another. There's just something you just have to look at. That's why you hire an expert to go with you when you're looking, because a trained eye will see different things in the agility of the horse or see things that are lacking in the agility of the horse.
So the lacking. So this is also part of like what you do when someone's buying a horse. That's what you look at is when you go and help people buy a horse.
Yes.
Even if you're doing it through Zoom, that's what you're looking at to see.
We're going to evaluate
health.
Its movement when it's free. Then evaluate that movement on the lunge line and evaluate that movement when it's being ridden.
Wow. Okay.
So we talk about the action and agility. It actually kind of comes together. We want to watch, how that horse moves its legs and its action. And the agility to me is a horse that's a little more supple and that can move quickly, that can stop, balance, to things like that. So agility to me is something that is a well-tuned machine. That's, things are moving because they're well oiled. There's nothing that's hanging up the horse to do the correct movement. Does that make sense to you, Lisa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also think that it also goes to, like, if you're buying a horse, that you need to know what you're buying the horse for when you look at that. Because you may be just, hey, I want a horse just to go on a trail ride on Sundays. How much of the agility do you need versus someone who's buying a horse to do rodeos and, barrel races.
Or jump over fences, obviously.
Yes,
you're going to need a lot more athletic ability to have that horse jump over fences than you would if you're just going to walk down the trail. But even walking down the trail, you need to have a horse that's balanced. Correct conformation just comes into play all the time. And we always go back to that on this podcast of people understanding conformation. And that's the structure, the bone structure of the horse, the skeletal bones that they have. And, you heard me talk a lot about form to function. That's a word that we use a lot in judging horses. We want to see a horse that's moving correctly and placing its hoof down. And when the front leg lifts up to take another step, the back leg will come forward and actually place it either slightly in front or in the same place as the front hoof. So we want a horse it has alignment as well as agility. There's another A, their alignment, in the way that it walks, in the way that it uses its legs and its balance, and all of its joints. And we're just looking at something that, again, is a well-oiled machine. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah. So you're looking at the athletic ability. You're looking at the muscles. Isn't the muscle part of it? Like seeing how the muscles are moving. Are the muscles so are they fit?
Yes. And then there's muscle structure. So we look for, there's certain parts of the horse, and especially their back legs, their forearms, their gaskins, that should have equal muscle on both sides of that leg. So that's something that you look for as well. Some horses lack the inside muscle. Doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad horse. Doesn't mean they can't carry you down the trail. Just depends on, again, what your purpose is going to be. And just how much stress are you going to be putting on back legs? How much muscle do you think you're going to need to climb 45 degrees straight up a mountain if you have to, like on the Chief Joseph Trail ride? You're going to need a horse that's well balanced. The muscles are well balanced. The horse is fit, and, you need a horse that's symmetrical. You don't want a horse with a short neck that's really thick, and he won't be able to balance unless he's got a little bit longer neck. If he's too muscle bound, he's going to have a hard time really moving those shoulders and his hips in a long stride or reach to climb those mountains. So he might be good in the show arena as a halter horse that's judged on muscle and conformation, but can he climb a mountain? So you have to look at the different aspects of that horse for the purpose that you're going to use him for.
Wow. So this is interesting too, because even if you're breeding and then you've got the baby, and then you need to look at, this horse, it is going to be better for this action, versus what we may have thought, depending on how it comes out, right?
Yeah. So here's just kind of a funny picture that came into my mind. We all know what Arnold Schwarzenegger looked like when he was doing Mr. Atlas, Mr. World, winning the championship. Look at all the muscles he had. Okay. If you cross two species that are built that way, look at all that muscle. That's fine for the purpose of what? For maybe lifting heavier things, maybe pulling, and we're going in relationship to horses, maybe pulling heavier wagons. But to take that horse up on a hill and ask him to climb straight up a 45-degree angle of a hill, I think he might have a difficult time because he's too muscle bound.
Oh, wow.
So that horse is going to struggle and not be as limber and as agile, because he's got too much muscle. So those are just the different things you want to look at when you're shopping for a horse and looking and evaluating one for you to purchase. And the purpose, again, what's going to be the purpose? Yeah. You'll take the Arnold Schwarzenegger one and go out in the center ring and win at halter because he's very symmetrical. The muscles are very symmetrical and they're very large. They're very well proportioned. They've been enhanced because of all the workouts. That's great. That's something what's pretty to look at for that purpose of a beauty contest. But to take that out and actually do something with it might be a little more difficult.
Well, so this is really kind of like the last episodes, the last volume, I'm going to call it. We talked about X-rays, and that was X. And you talked about not only should people understand how to read an X-ray, horse owners and riders, but actually understand the anatomy. So does that come into play for you as, a trainer, and then people calling you to buy a horse, is that you understand the anatomy? And also, does it all, when you're doing that, do you have to look at who's riding the horse, and does the horse and the rider fit physically? Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, a person that might weigh 250 pounds is going to be riding a pony.
Right.
I mean, the pony won't be able to carry that type of weight. So you need something, and not that that's bad. I mean, if that's what what God blessed you with and you have good command over it, that's fine. That's what I tell all of my students. Don't change just because I'm a little person. You don't have to be that. Whatever God gave you, have good command over it. So if you need a larger horse, then you need to look for a larger horse to carry your larger frame. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
You just have to, have to make things match.
Which is different in the horse racing arena.
Obviously, if we're going to race a horse, we want him to be definitely agile. We want him to be a little bit leaner. We definitely want to have longer legs. We don't want a ton of muscle. Not like the halter horse. Is not like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type of horse. That's the best reference I have, is everybody knows what he looked like when he was Mr. Atlas. That's just, you get that picture of all those muscles. If you had that much muscle, that horse would have a hard time running fast. They'll be strong, but he's not going to be fast. His muscles need to be leaner and a little bit longer in the neck and in the legs in order for that horse to cover some ground and be swift doing it. I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be able to run many foot races.
Okay, well, because
he's so heavily muscled.
Exactly. Or you could be like me and be knock-kneed, and the sprinting is just not going to happen. Number one, because I just get the giggles, right? Not good at it. But I will do in school when we had running races, I would do a cross country really well.
Your example is great. Thank you for bringing that up, because conformation is important. You need, if you have a horse with good straight legs, he's going to have really good agility. If you have a horse that has crooked legs, he's going to struggle with having that agility. He's going to have to modify a lot of the ways that he moves because those legs are crooked, and he will break down earlier than you would want because it's formed to function. He will not be able to function correctly and last a long time and be efficient in the way he does his trail riding or jumping with you, whatever he's going to do, if those legs aren't straight and he can't support his body and the hooves can't support the legs. So that's why conformation is so important.
Okay, you talk about the hooves, and I really wanted to talk about it because being knock-kneed has affected how my feet are, right?
Of course,
So
yes.
I'm going from human, so we have a little bit of understanding on that side, especially for beginners. But when you go into the hoof placement, isn't that important? Like when you're purchasing a horse or you have a horse and that's part of lunging, as I recall. I remember, when having a horse lunging and even learning dressage actually taught you what was going on with the hoof placement.
Well, yes, the hoof is the foundation of the horse. That's what's going to carry his weight. It's going to carry his body to do whatever you're going to ask him to do. He's got to have good hooves, and they need to be in proportion of what his body is. We talked about that, I think, in our first podcast. There's some bloodlines that actually produce smaller feet on horses, and yet these bodies are huge. Oh my gosh, that's just a scenario for a horse that's going to break down early. Mm-hmm. The horse's body, if it's a large muscular body, won't be supported by a small hoof. So everything needs to be in proportion.
So how do people get to learn this? That's what I want to know. So we're talking about this is what you need to look at.
There's books to read. Honestly, there's really some good books out there to read on conformation of horses. We used to have encyclopedias when you and I were growing up, but you've got the internet now. So you could look up conformation. They'll show you bone structure. There's plenty of pictures out there that show you the good angle of a knee and a cannon bone and a fetlock on a horse or a hock. So look at the and matter of fact, there's some breed associations that actually have some little bit of seminars and have this information on their websites to look at conformation, and you study that just like the judges study that. So you can actually see what it looks like to compare the good horse. They'll have a picture of a good horse, and then they may have 2 or 3 pictures of horses that aren't so good, and you can compare the two. So your eye is trained then to look at what is correct. So when you go out to look at a horse, you get that impression in your mind of what's correct so that you'll be wise, have some wisdom, have some knowledge to know whether or not this is really correct or not. There's a lot of people that buy horses, Lisa, and then resell them. Sometimes they're a good fit, sometimes they aren't. They buy a horse because it's a pretty color. Well, that's really the wrong reason right there. And they don't look at conformation. So you can learn. There's so much out there on the internet that you can learn. The best thing to do is also to take clinics from experienced horse people that will teach you about judging and evaluating horses. You hire somebody like me that is a judge, and that's what I do for a living, is evaluate horses in the show arena. And of course, we're always looking for the perfect horse. And we're looking for all these elements to give us the perfect specimen who's going to get that blue ribbon today because it's so close to being perfect.
But yeah, like you said, close to being perfect, because there's no perfect, but you want to get it as best you can. Right. It's kind of like buying a house. It's like,
there's a lot of variables of buying a house.
Yeah. I mean, a fixer-upper, you don't want to have that on a horse either. Like too much of a fixer-upper, right? Like when you purchase a horse.
You can't. That's an interesting comment you just made. You can't completely fix conformation, Lisa. That is what is in your DNA. That's going to come from the father, the sire, and the dam of the horse. If both those parents have crooked legs, your baby's going to get crooked legs. There's nothing you can do to change that. Now, you can get a good farrier that might help alleviate some of the problem with different angles on hooves, but we can't change that. That's in the DNA.
I can't change my
supplements to help the horse enhance maybe good bone density, but you're not going to change the angle. That's your DNA. So that's why you need to know when you're breeding. You need to look at the stallion, make sure he's correct, make sure he's got everything that you want to have in a baby. And the same thing with that mare. Why cross 2 animals if they aren't perfect, at least perfect in your mind for what you want to do? You're just going to create another horse that's got another problem.
Well, the other thing too is, it just goes, okay, this horse, maybe I'm going with the knock knees, right? Then maybe they're just good for that Sunday trail ride, and just, hey, let them hang out.
Go down. Maybe the horse has got the greatest disposition. It's just as sweet as can be. And you'll find a good farrier that'll help try to get that horse balanced a little bit with the knock knees. And they might be fine. And you need to know that about him, that he is knock kneed, because you're not going to ask him to go climb a mountain. You're not going to ask him to climb elevation or even going to go down a hill. That horse could trip himself and you both could fall. So you're limited right there. You're just limited. So you have to know that. So when you're buying, I'm going to have to say, an imperfect horse, you have some things you're going to have to deal with. So that's up to you. If you want to spend money in dealing with that, you will never be able to truly fix it. Again, it's genetic. And, you might just out of the kindness of your horse heart kind of want to, in a sense, rescue this horse and give him a good home. That's great. But you're going to be limited in what you can ask him to do.
That is so true. I'm going to bring it back to the human side for just, everybody to understand the perspective of that. So I got knocked knees and flat feet. It's just the way I was born. I can't help it. Right. But I will tell you this, when I rode horses, that actually, the effects of it actually started to improve. So I'm just saying, horse riding actually is so good for people with knock knees and flat feet because you start to lean in.
You strengthen your muscles, you strengthen your legs. Yeah,
but it's not perfect.
Help you ride. That's great.
I'm never going to be like everyone who doesn't have that, but you can strengthen. So it goes exactly like what you're saying with the farrier, getting support, having arches in your shoes and all that kind of stuff, as I did as a little baby. Had to have those little arches and, and it's a fashion statement, but you have to make good of what you have. And maybe that's, your horse that you have, but, understanding to not take a horse that isn't built for what you want it to do and try and make that horse do it.
It all goes back to the breeders. They need to be responsible for what they're breeding. People need to pay attention. Just because you have a sweet mare and you want to breed her and have a baby, that might be great. But if she's got major flaws, you're just going to pass it on. And then that baby's going to pass it on. And then you're going to keep passing it on. So we're creating an inferior, basically.
That's not fair to the horse
line. Yeah, you got to think about those things. You really need to think about those things.
So do you have accredited breeders for horses like you do for dogs? Ooh.
Yes and no. There's some breed associations that want you to have your stallions tested for the diseases that they are carrying these days. Some just recommend it, some demand it, some overlook it. So it's unfortunate. So it's entirely an ethical question to a breeder who needs to be aware of what your stallion has, what he is. It's just a lot of local people will breed because they have a beautiful horse that's got some really great color. Again, we go back to color again. Don't even look at bloodlines.
It's like choosing a car, right?
Bloodlines will tell you a lot about some agility and actually behavior and everything else. There's just a lot of responsibility to this. And obviously, if you end up wanting to breed animals, you really should be creating something that's even better than what you have. The two perfect parents come together. You want a perfect foal, you want the perfect baby. So you want to enhance all of that. So if a mare has got crooked legs and knock knees and the stallion doesn't, you're hoping that the stallion can put the nice straight legs on a baby. You've got a 75% chance of still getting those knock knees. So
let's hear it for my knees.
Why would you want to do that? Breed a horse that's going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You may take that risk and then it comes out knock knee. Well, then now you have two of them that are that way. Maybe you'll get lucky and that one won't be, but why not start out with the best that you can to breed the best of the best to get the best?
Fascinating. Look where this conversation went, Christy. Well, it's true. I mean, that's the thing.
It's true.
So it's important to have, I would say, learn, you try and learn yourself, like you're saying, going online and things like that. But then also there's people that can help you, like what you do with people to help them purchase the horse, even if it's over Zoom, because you can say, I want to see the horse from the back. And I would say even do it in video. Right?
I evaluate a lot of videos. Lisa, that's how I help people. Is if they can send me the video that's posted online for the horse that's for sale, I'll evaluate the video. We want to do that first. It saves some time for us now to look at videos before you go out and actually see a horse, just depending on the location of the horse. You can shop looking at that first. And then when you have a couple of them that look really good on the video, you can request some other videos with whatever specifics you want on that. And then you can make an appointment to go out and see that horse in person.
Right on. Well, thank you, Miss Christy. Here's to the start of volume 2 of the ABCs of horses. Everyone, again, as always, I like to give out Christy's website. So you can go to wdnhorse.com. It's linked in the episode notes, as is volume 1. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you when you come back from the Chief Joseph Trail Ride.
Yes. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm looking forward to another wonderful year with all of you.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's ABCs of Horses featuring Christy Wood. You can keep up with Christy and learn more about her services and her books by going to her website, wdnhorse.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.